Hello, my name is Blair, welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to the Sensory Awareness series. Today is day 7, which means we're a whole week in! Yay! And we're celebrating by talking about meltdowns! Yay! Don't worry, I'm gonna try to make it as palatable as possible. I make a lot of computer analogies when it comes to my brain, and like describing the way it functions, just because I find them to be really helpful for some reason. Maybe I'm actually a robot, I don't know. But I'm going to start off with a computer analogy today, so bear with me. If you go into the settings on your computer, you can determine how much of its processing power is currently being taken up. It can never be 0% unless the computer is off, but there are processes that always have to be running in order to make sure that the computer, actually computes. And humans are the same way. For most people, sensory processing falls into this category. Our brains automatically tune out what isn't important for us to notice or pay attention to. Conversation with a friend? Important. TV playing in the background? Not important. It typically requires something pretty obtrusive, like a car alarm or a bright flashing light, to demand your attention and cause you to react. We don't have this luxury. Our filtering system has been switched from automatic to manual. In other words, the percentage of our CPU that's going to be taken up by those essential functions is a lot higher than it would be for a neurotypical person. This means that it takes a lot less for us to hit our maximum capacity. So what happens when our computing power is completely taken up and we can't handle anymore? We start to experience something called sensory overload, which involves the activation of our flight or fight response. Some people call this the fight, flight, freeze response. Okay, good, I said all those F words correctly. Good job, Blair. Good job. Sensory overload can look like two different patterns of behavior depending on the person's personality and natural inclinations. Today we are going to focus on the first one, which is meltdowns. I understand that many of us have a negative connotation with the word meltdown. When we think of someone having a meltdown, we might think of them as being whiny, attention-seeking, or even entitled. I'm asking you to put away that connotation right now. A sensory meltdown is not a tantrum. It is the result of the buildup of days or weeks of enduring constant pain and discomfort that doesn't ever go away, sometimes not even when you're asleep. For people who have other mental illnesses like OCD or anxiety, it can be really difficult to even get through the day without having a meltdown. So what does a meltdown feel like? Well, I wrote down a lot of descriptive words in my notebook to try to capture that feeling, but all of them were just completely blown out of the water by a YouTube comment that I found that simply said, "It feels like every cell in your body is having a panic attack." That's it. That's it right there. It feels like you've lost control, like you're weak, like you're fragile or feeble-minded. You can feel angry, sad, upset, confused, lost, or even guilty. A lot of people with SPD will describe themselves as feeling trapped during their meltdowns, because intellectually they know that these experiences, these sensory stimuli, shouldn't be as painful as they are, but there's no way to stop them from hurting this much. Basically, all of these filters that you're trying to use and employ simultaneously just fall down because your mind has run out of energy to hold all of them up. For me, all of my senses start to escalate in hypersensitivity. As the meltdown continues, sounds get louder, lights get brighter, and touches start to hurt more and more and more until eventually it gets to the point where my clothes hurt. And even sometimes, honestly, sometimes I've had the experience where my skin, it hurts for my skin to touch my other skin. That's how overactive my brain gets during these moments, and it's extremely hard to deal with. This continues to get worse until I'm completely consumed by my sensory feelings that I can no longer ignore or distract myself from. Sometimes this is very gradual, other times it can hit you in an instant. But in every meltdown situation, there is a point of no return where de-escalation is no longer possible, and whatever is coming out, it's just gotta come out. It's like throwing up. You just gotta... I don't want to think about throw up. Why did I say that? From the outside, this can look like crying, screaming, throwing things, destroying things, inability to use language, and desperate attempts to self-regulate, which can sometimes be self-injuring sensory behaviors. Here's a couple things to remember about meltdowns. Number 1, Meltdowns suck. They're frustrating. They're exhausting. And if you are an adult or even an older child having a meltdown, they're embarrassing. Many of us even feel guilty for having meltdowns, which just makes everything worse because then, on top of the fun little yummy cake that is the meltdown experience, you have this nice little icing layer of feeling guilty about having a neurological disorder that you can't control. Number 2. Meltdowns can't be solved with reasoning or punishment. During this time, the parts of our brain that control things like inhibition and logical thinking are just, they're not even picking up the phone. So trying to reason us out of a meltdown will not work. Just don't even try it. It will only increase emotional arousal, which will then increase the sensory sensitivity, which will make everything actually last longer and be worse. So just please hold all comments and questions until the end. Thank you. Punishments aren't helpful either, because meltdowns aren't a misbehavior. They're a response to being overwhelmed, and they're completely reasonable, to be honest. Number 3. Meltdowns don't last forever. Meltdowns are like a firework. They're really loud, really bright, really attention-grabbing, and then they go away. However, after effects from meltdowns can be present. A lot of times this is just being really tired, so make sure to be mindful of that. Number 4. Meltdowns are inevitable, but they can be really important. If they're dealt with constructively, meltdowns can kind of be like a factory reset. Like any overwhelming pain response, meltdowns are the body's way of saying, no, no more. I can't take it. Meltdowns force us to stop whatever we are doing and only listen to our body and our mind. What are they trying to tell you? If the person in your life with SPD regularly has meltdowns at a specific place or at a specific time, pay attention to that. Maybe they need to go to that place when it's less busy. Maybe they need to take something out of their schedule. Or maybe they just need to remember to make time to stim throughout the day. Of course, this isn't always possible, but it is something to consider when you are thinking about how to respond to meltdowns. So now we are at the end of day 7. I didn't want to make this video too long, so I will actually be talking about preventative strategies as well as immediate responses to meltdowns tomorrow. Don't worry, I won't leave this topic on such a stressful note. Remember to do something sensational today, and hopefully I will see you back tomorrow. Bye! For me, all of my senses go up